Sewing fails. We all have them. We all hate them. I wish I could tell you how to avoid them, but I can't. I can give you some pointers on how to minimize them. Hi, I'm Lisa, the owner and designer behind Pink Holly Bush Patterns. Pink Holly Bush Patterns are a line of sewing patterns designed for children's garments, most of which include smocking and which are primarily designed for knits. But I also sew for myself and my 2 adult daughters. So on this channel, we talk all things sewing and smocking. And today we are talking about sewing and about sewing fails. And I wish, as I said, that I could tell you how to never have a sewing fail, but the reality is that sewing is a creative process. And we learn by our mistakes. So yes, I am going to share with you my latest sewing fail, but at the same time, I do have some good news and some pointers that you can use to minimize those. Okay, so first up, most sewing fails result from one of 3 reasons. Let's talk about those 3 and how you can avoid them. So the first reason that you get a sewing fail is because you tried to sew a garment or did sew a garment that really isn't your style. The second reason is that you picked the wrong fabric for the pattern. And the third reason is that you didn't get a good fit. So let's go through each of those and talk about how you can minimize the problem. So the first one may be the least obvious, and yet I find it's probably the thing that I have the hardest time with often. And that is you sewed a pattern that really wasn't your style. Nowadays, with the internet and all the wonderful inspiration we have between Instagram and Pattern Review and podcasts and everywhere that you can see all these new and wonderful designs, it's really easy to get caught up in that great pattern you just saw your favorite person on Instagram wearing, or the latest trend that's coming out, and think, okay, I'm gonna sew it, without actually stopping and thinking, is that really my style? Do I really like that? Is that something that I'm going to enjoy wearing and want to wear? Is it going to look good on me? Now, there is no right or wrong to this. Please do not hear that I am saying that. But you do have a definite style, whether you're aware of it or not. You have things that you like on you, that you feel look good on you, and that you're comfortable wearing. And when you deviate too far from that, because it's the latest trend or because you saw a great or cute person on Instagram wearing it, if it's something you're just not comfortable with, then you're not going to like it when you've sewn it and you've put it on. Okay, so that's great, you're thinking, Lisa, but I don't know what my style is, and how do I figure this out? Well, the easiest thing to do is just go in your closet and spend a few minutes there. Pull out the pieces that you reach for over and over. Now, I'm not saying pull out the pieces that you reach for just because it's comfortable. Pull out the pieces that you put on, and when you put them on, you feel great in them. The things that every time you put on, you think, I really like this. I really feel I look good. And now notice some things about those pieces. What type of silhouette is it? What type of fabric is it? What are the colors? Is it a print? Is it a solid? Do you like large florals? Do you like stripes? Do you feel great in black? Does the color make you look good? Does it wash you out? What about the fabrics? Do you find that you just like something that's really soft, but a crisp cotton blouse makes you feel lousy? I mean, I personally don't like a crisp cotton blouse, and I've realized that, so I don't sew them anymore. Again, what about style? Let me give you a personal example here. Right now, this year, button-down shirts and blazers are both very popular. I will not be sewing either one because I don't like wearing either one. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't like that style, and there is maybe a distinction that's important to notice, because you can hear the advice to say, well, go on Pinterest or go on Instagram and start saving things you like. If I go on Pinterest, I will save people wearing a button-down collar shirt and a blazer. I think it looks fantastic, but I don't like it when I put it on me. On me, I feel it just is a little bit too masculine. My style is feminine, polished, with little special details. By the way, if you're wondering where I came up with those 3 words, this is from following one of my favorite podcasts, and that's the Everyday Style Network. And if you want some help with your style, I really urge you to go check out her podcast. I will put a link to that below. And she also has some courses that she offers and a capsule wardrobe package for every season, all of which you might want to check out if you want a little bit more help with your style. So while you're in your closet and you're noticing what you love, I also want you to pay attention. What are the pieces that are in there that you never reach for? And I'm not, because they don't fit. We all have those in there, our closet too, right? But the things that do fit, that you're not getting rid of because, you know, they're good pieces, but you really don't reach for them. Why? Why don't you put them on? What is it about those pieces that you really don't like? Like I gave you the example. I don't like the button-down collar shirt on me. I don't feel it is flattering. I also don't think black looks good next to me. This might look like black in the video. It's actually navy blue, but there's a lot of white with it as well. I think black sort of washes me out. Make a note of those sorts of things. When it comes to style, also note silhouette. For example, do you like a big flowy top? Do you want maybe a flowy top that's trimming close to the body? Do you like things that are fitted? Does it make a difference, the fabric? I have found it does. I have a sweater that is a thicker knit, and I wear that very fitted, and I feel it's flattering that way. I have other things that are thinner, and if they're fitted, they show the lumps and the bumps, and I don't like those. So again, making notes of those types of things can really help you when you go to sew your next garment. Let me give you one more example, and this is going into my latest sewing fail. You know, one of the things, again, I will pin a lot of because I like the idea of it and I like the look of it on other people, are just sort of those dresses that don't have a defined waist and are just very loose and flowing. Again, I think others look really great in them. Every time I put one of those on, though, I don't feel good in it. So I really have found I need something with some sort of defined waist. That might be an empire waist, but I do want some sort of definition there in the waist. And when I put on things that are just kind of loose and flowing, don't like it on me. So noticing that again will help you as you plan your next sewing garment. if you want to try a new style or silhouette, and of course that's one of the benefits of sewing, so you're just not sure if it's going to work on you, another option is that style or silhouette something that's out there, easily accessible and ready to wear? If it is, go to the store and try one on. I mean, how many times when you are in a store and you see something and you might think, oh, that's really cute. And then you go in the dressing room, you try it on, you think, oh my goodness, what was I thinking? If you can try it on and you can figure that out before you go sew it, that might help you rule something in or rule something out, especially if it's a silhouette that you don't have a lot of hanging in your closet. Okay, let's go to reason number 2. You can have a sewing fail, and that is because you didn't pair the correct fabric with the pattern that you chose, or you didn't pick the right fabric for the pattern. Now, of course, your pattern is going to give you recommendations for what fabrics work. But that doesn't mean just because that fabric will work with that pattern that you're going to like the outcome. So again, here's another place where it really helps to do a little homework. In fact, you're going to find that I'm telling you need to do a little homework in all of these, okay? Go to Pattern Review, go to Instagram, and look up that pattern. If it's an indie designer pattern, go to the pattern designer's website and look at all the examples that they might have posted on their website of different people who have made the pattern. And then start noticing what fabrics are they using, and do you like the result with that pattern? A pattern might be able to be made in a very structured fabric, and it might be able to be made in a really loose, flowy fabric, and it might work for both. But do you like it made in both? Or instead, are you looking at the pattern going, you know, I really like it when it's here in this loose, flowy one, but I don't like it when it's in this structured fabric. You might also find that something works well in a print, but not in a solid, or vice versa. So for example, I made my daughter the Sonesta tank. And when I was looking at the examples, one of the things I loved about the tank and I thought she would enjoy are kind of the unique style lines. But I noticed that in a print, you couldn't see them at all. So I made it in a solid for her, and you really can see the style lines now. I probably would not have thought of that if I hadn't done a little bit of homework and checked that out. Reason number 3, you didn't get a good fit. Now, there are whole books written on fit, so I can't handle that in just a short video. But I can, again, give you some pointers. How do you go about trying to make sure that you're going to feel comfortable and you're going to like the fit that you get? Well, the first thing is take accurate measurements of yourself, and then make sure to check the sizing on the pattern. I know that maybe should be obvious, but there just are no standard size ranges in sewing patterns anymore. Each indie designer will have their own pattern measurement chart. The big 4 sewing patterns have their own. I am surprised the number of people that I talk to that assume that whatever size they might wear and ready to wear, they're going to take in a sewing pattern. There is no coordination there whatsoever. And in fact, especially with the big 4, that scale was put together back in the 1960s. It has nothing to do with the sizes you find in ready to wear right now. So do not make assumptions there. Make sure you look at the sizing chart of that particular pattern designer and then compare it to the measurements that you actually have. And additional tip, sew for the measurements you have and make sure that you're taking those measurements often. Our bodies are changing all the time. It's just how it is. It's fine. But you want the garment to fit and to fit well when you finish it. So take accurate measurements and then sew for those measurements. And don't worry about what those measurements are. They're just a number. Okay, the second thing is then measure the pattern before you actually cut it. Now, I know a lot of patterns will put finished garment measurements on the pattern, and that's wonderful, but you still want to double check and compare your measurements to that garment before you cut it out. And sometimes you don't have finished garment measurements. It helps you assess the ease again and just see, is this an amount of ease I'm going to be comfortable with? Do I want to give myself a little bit more room before I cut this with the idea that I can then take it in if I want to? Just making some of those choices ahead of time is really helpful. So let me give you an example. I just made the Love Notions Arlington sweater recently by taking my measurements and then looking at the pattern measure or the pattern chart. I was in between a small and a medium, and so I printed out both, and I had the intention of cutting the medium. But then when I measured the pattern pieces, I realized that no, that was really going to be quite a bit larger. Now, that's nothing against the pattern. It's designed for a sweater. And if I were making a heavier sweater, if I were using a fabric that was a heavier sweater than I was, it's a heavier sweater knit than I was, I might have wanted that additional ease. But I was making it with a thin sweater knit. I knew that, and I knew my measurements. I also compared it to a ready-wear top I have and the fit I like. And I was like, oh no, I'm not going to need this extra. And so I ended up just cutting the straight small, and even then ended up taking that in a little bit. Now, could I have done that all if I had cut the medium? Probably. But I would have had quite a bit more to try to take in and to figure out. And sometimes if you have too much fabric to work with, it can be hard to tell where you really need to take it in because the whole thing is just too large for you. The third recommendation under getting a good fit, you know what I'm going to say, do your homework. Go to Pattern Review. Go to Instagram, read the descriptions, and note any comments that people who have made that, what are they saying about sizing? You'd be surprised what you would find out. And, you know, especially how often when you go to sew a garment, and I know personally, I am often falling between two sizes. Now, do I size up or do I size down? Well, that decision I often make based on comments I've read in Pattern Review or Instagram. When I'm hearing repeatedly it runs small or it runs big or you need to size up or down, that helps. But you also will just be given a heads up on certain issues you might have or that the pattern has. When I made my daughter's coat a year ago, and I will, her winter coat, I will link to that video where I discuss this. When I read the reviews, I found there were certain people saying they were having a real trouble with the fit of the raglan sleeves. And I remember thinking, huh? And my daughter typically is really easy to fit. She fits right into those measurements, and this was going to be a winter coat. I didn't think there'd be any problem? Well, because I read those reviews, I decided to do a muslin, and I'm really glad I did. The sleeves in the raglan was way too tight for her. I ended up taking a course on pattern review on how to fit raglan, and she ended up with a beautiful coat because of that. But if I had just started out by cutting out the coat, I would have ruined the fabric, and it was expensive wool that I didn't want to ruin. And then last, make a muslin. Now, let me just say, I usually don't, especially in tops, but I'm comfortable not making the muslin because I've done some of the other research first. And if there's anything that tells me and gives me a heads up that there might be a problem, then I go and I do make the muslin. Now, one of the last time I made pants, my sewing fail on pants, I did not make a muslin and ended up ruining the whole thing because I didn't take the time to do that. If I had followed some of my own advice, I would have. But I get it. Making muslins are not fun. I usually do skip it unless I've read that there are issues with the fit, or I'm trying to do a more fitted garment where I know I really am going to need that preciseness. I mentioned in my fall sewing plans video, and I'll put a link to that I want to make the Nova coat. Again, that is one where I have read people saying over and over that they're sizing down 1 or 2 sizes even. So I will make a quick muslin of that before I cut my wool for the coat. Okay, and let me show you my latest sewing fail. What did I do wrong when I made this dress? This is the Style Arc Tallulah dress, and I broke 2 of the 3 rules. The first one is the silhouette. As I mentioned, I like the idea of just a throw on and go dress. But the reality is I want something that defines my waist a little bit better, and I'm really not comfortable in more of these shift dresses as much as I like the idea of them, and I like the look of them on other people. But when I put it on me, I just don't feel good in it. The second thing I did wrong here was I picked the wrong fabric. Now this fabric is a lovely scuba knit. It's a beautiful color, but it is a solid. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it is a shiny solid. And a shiny solid knit often shows every lump and bump. It also can just be, I find, like a little bit much. I think this dress made up in a print might have been better, not necessarily a bold print, but I think it just, the combination of the shininess, the dark green, the olive, it was just a little too much. So I'm still kind of deciding what I'm going to do, but I am not comfortable with the dress. I finished it. I know I really won't wear it. I'll wear it once and not feel good about it. So we are reassessing there. I hope these pointers on how to avoid the 3 main mistakes that lead to sewing fails will help you avoid your next potential sewing fail and give you more success as you are sewing your next garment. If you have more ideas on how you avoid sewing fails, I would love to hear them. Please leave them for me in the comments below, and happy sewing.